Among the most important Old Norse poems that survive from the Middle Ages that give us information about the Norse gods and heroes, one that does not survive in the compilation called the Poetic Edda in the manuscript called the Codex Regius is the poem Rígsþula. Now, in modern-day editions and translations of the Poetic Edda, Rígsþula is often included, along with a few other poems that are not found in the Codex Regius. But Rígsþula is actually found preserved in a manuscript of Snorri's Prose Edda. This is the Codex Wormianus manuscript in Icelandic called Ormsbók. Rígsþula, which literally means list, Thula, of Rígr, tells of how the god Heimdallr, taking the name Rígr, went down to earth early in the existence of humankind and slept with 3 couples of early humans in succession, with the couples getting younger and richer as he went. And each successive couple then became parents to the first human beings of the different classes in Norse society: thrall, slave; karl, freeman or middle class; and jarl, nobleman. The specific characteristics of the couples and their homes and the food that they give Rígr in the poem give us an interesting insight into the assumptions made about different classes in Norse society. So the very first couple that Rígr comes to are Oi and Edda, literally great-grandfather and great-grandmother. It is possible, by the way, that that name Edda is the source of the name Edda in these books, the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda. Actually, that name was originally given just to the Prose Edda, although no one is certain about this. So at the home of Oi and Edda, Rígr is allowed in to stay the night. Actually, he stays 3 nights. And he's given food of a very low quality: a swollen loaf of bread, heavy and thick, stuffed with grains, soup in a bowl, and boiled calf meat, nothing special. And he sleeps between Oi and Edda for the 3 nights that he stays there, and 9 months later, Edda gives birth to a boy. They splash him with water. This is an early custom of Norse society, apparently somewhat similar to Christian baptism, and they name him thrall, slave. Also the source, of course, of the English word thrall, as in one is enthralled to someone. Now, thrall, as he grows up, is described very much as a slave, with all of the characteristic ugliness that slaves have in Norse society and many other slave-keeping societies. He has scabby skin, knobby knuckles, and fat fingers. His face is ugly, he has a bad back, and he has a long pair of heels on his feet. Of course, being myself of Scotch-Irish descent, probably they have someone a little bit like one of my ancestors in mind here, being that most slaves were taken from Ireland and Scotland and Iceland. There's also an interesting connection to Ireland that I'll get back to. Now, thrall's jobs are going to be your typical slave jobs: rope making, basket making, firewood gathering, that kind of thing. And eventually he is going to end up coupling up with a woman named Thyr, literally slave woman. They're not depicted as marrying, just as getting together. And she, of course, is described as very much the same as thrall, not very appealing. She has scars on her feet, sunburnt arms, and a hooked nose. In stanza 12, we learn about their children. Now, what follows, whenever I quote from the Poetic Edda, I will read in Old Norse with reconstructed medieval Old Norse pronunciation, and the English translation will be my own, which was published in 2015. Stanza 12. Born olu thou, bjögu og undu, hygek at heti, hreimur og fjósnir, klúr og klegi, kefsir, fúlnir, drumbur, digraldi, drótur og hósfir, lutur og legjaldi, logðu garða, akra tódu, unu at svinum, geta gatu, grovu torf. They had children. They taught them and loved them. I think their sons were named Lumpy and Barn Cleaner, Noisy and Horsefly, Sleeper, Stinker, Midget, Fat Boy, Slow and Gray Hair, Hunchback and Dangle Leg. They made fences, they planted fields, they raised pigs, they herded goats, they shoveled manure. So the names, of course, reflect assumptions about slave jobs and slave appearance, and there we also get a sample of the low-grade menial jobs that they're put to. And of course, slave and slave woman also have daughters, including shorty, fatty, fat calf, beak nose, shriek, slave girl, gossip, skinny hips, and bird legs. Well, leaving behind this benighted household, Rígr has advanced along his way, and he sleeps next at the home of Avi and Amma, literally grandfather and grandmother. Now, Avi has a little bit better life than his correspondent in the other household. He spends his time carving wood. He has a trim beard, hair that falls in locks on his forehead, and he owns a tailored shirt as well as a chest to keep his valuables in. Amma is weaving, working a spinning wheel. She wears a headdress, a blouse, a lace choker, and jeweled brooches, so a much more privileged household. We don't read what food they serve to Rígr, but the same basic pattern holds. He stays with them for 3 nights, sleeping between them, and 9 months later, Amma has a child. In stanza 19, Jóð ol Amma, Jósuvatni, Kolodu karl, Kona sveip rifti, Ráðan og rjóðan, Riðuðu augu. Amma had a child. They splashed him with water and named him Freeman, Karl. His mother wrapped her red-haired, ruddy child in cloth. His eyes were keen. Now, Karl will go on to do middle-class jobs. He tames cattle. He makes plows. He drives plows. He builds houses and barns. He makes wagons. And, of course, the description of him physically is more middle class for Norse society. And the fact that he has red hair is interesting because, of course, Thor, the great favorite of the Norse, as a god had red hair, associating him with the middle class. Karl will be married to a lady named Snor, who wears a veil and keys to their wedding. These are characteristics of bridal garb in Norse society, and they will exchange rings, so they are actually formally married, unlike the slaves, who probably have no need of such ceremonies. And in stanza 22, we hear about their sons. Born olu thou, bjögu og undu, het hallar og drengur, holður, þegin og smíður, breiður bóndi, bundenskegi, búi og bódi, bratskegr og segr. They had children. They taught them and loved them. Their sons were manful and fighter, brave swordsman and smith, stout, farmer, trimbeard, rancher and husband, sharpbeard and manly. And their daughters have somewhat less revealing names, things like smart, bride, swan, lady, dame, girl, noblewoman, wife, shy, and vivacious. Well, Rígr continues on to yet a third household. This one, already we can tell from the very first sense about it, much nicer. There's a ring for knocking on the door, there's straw on the floor, and when he arrives, the householders, fadir and moðir, you can tell how closely related these languages are to English, are looking in one another's eyes and holding hands. Fadir is pursuing a noble activity, archery. He's stringing his bow, bending its shaft, making arrows for it, while moðir is worrying over her appearance, smoothing out wrinkles and the sleeve of her dress. She wears a headdress, a jewel on her chest, a long dress, and a blue blouse, of course blue being an expensive dye at this time. She's described as very beautiful in such over-the-top terms as hols hvítari hreini mjólu, a neck whiter than driven snow. Now, pure driven snow, hreini mjólu. Now, the color white in describing women is strongly associated with beauty, probably having to do with the fact that women of higher classes probably didn't work outside very much, and so their un-sun-touched skin was considered beautiful. Now, the food they serve, very different from the food that Rígr got at the home of great-grandfather and great-grandmother. There's a white tablecloth. There's thin sliced bread of white wheat, quite a luxury at this time. There's meat and poultry, wine from gemstone beakers, of course an import, very expensive. And they all sit and talk into the night. For 3 nights, Rígr will stay, sleeping between them, and 9 months later, Móðir will give birth to a child, jarl, meaning nobleman, lord. He'll be swaddled in silk and water sprinkled over him. Stanza 32. Svein ol Móðir, silki vafði, Jósu vatni, jarl letu heta, bleikt var hår, bjartir vangar, ótul voru augu, sem ymlingi. Mother had a child. She swaddled him in silk. They sprinkled water over him. They named him Lord. His hair was blonde. His cheeks were bright. His eyes were as cruel and clear as vipers. And snake-like eyes are considered a noble characteristic, as you can see in the saga of the Volsungs in Sigurdur and his daughter Svanhild, or in, well, in a somewhat different way, Sigurd Snake-Eye in the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. A jarl will learn all kinds of noble skills: how to hold a shield, string a bow, bend a bow, carve an arrow, how to throw a spear, cast a javelin, ride a horse, how to hunt with dogs, draw a sword, swim competitively. All these things are noble pursuits because they involve expensive stuff. Horses are expensive, swords are expensive. Taking the time to learn how to swim or shoot a bow well are expensive in terms of time. Now, as he grows up, Rígr will come back to teach Jarl runes and encourage him to conquer lands, which he will do, becoming a powerful warlord, generous with his money, which of course is a desired characteristic among warlords in Old Norse and Old English poems. Now, Jarl will marry to a lady named Erna, that means she-eagle, eagle lady. She is described as soft-fingered, white, again implying the beauty of a woman kept out of the sunlight, and wise, all terms very frequently used of beautiful, noble women in Norse poems. Mjófingraði hvítri horskri. And she wears a bridal veil to their wedding. Their sons have somewhat boring names, things like boy, kid, offspring, but their last son is named Konur, and he is called Konur Ungur, young Konur. But this is meant to suggest the word konungur in Old Norse, which means king. Now these boys will learn to play together, they'll swim, they'll learn how to play the game Tavl or Nevatavl, the Norse board game. They'll learn to break horses, make shields, shoot arrows, and make war. And Konur, in particular, will learn runes well. He'll learn Avindrunar, fate runes, and Aldarunar, life runes. He'll learn spells to save lives, dull blades, and calm storms. He'll learn the language of birds, spells to put out fires, and induce sleep. These spells all resemble spells that are known by Odin that he tells us about in Hávamál. And the fact that he knows the language of birds may remind us of course, the greatest Norse hero, Sigurdur, in the saga of the Volsungs. Now, Rígr will come back to teach him runes, but Konur will trick Rígr, learning runes better than him. And in an odd note, we learn that he can call himself Rígr after he learns better runecraft than Rígr. Difficult to say what's going on there. And really, it's interesting how much more Rígr seems like an Odin figure than like Heimdallr, who admittedly, we don't know very much about Heimdallr because he appears so little in our sources. But this association with runes and with the upper class really makes one think about Odin. The poem ends somewhat abruptly. It is incomplete. There's probably about 1 page missing. The way it ends is young Konur Ungur, king, is out shooting at birds, and there's a crow on a branch who tells him, "Wouldn't it be nobler to shoot men? Why are you wasting your arrows on birds?" And then tells him about 2 men who live nearby who have a lot of cool stuff that he could take if he killed them and conquered their lands. So there you have the birth of the war-loving, noble class of Viking times. Now there's an interesting Irish connection here. Rígr is very similar to an Old Irish word for king. I believe the oblique stem is Ríg. Now I am no expert on Old Irish language. I took a semester of it, or Irish culture and language and such. I will leave such things to people who know them better than I do. But there are some interesting potential connections to Irish myth here. I'll link to some articles and such in the video description below for those who want to pursue those connections a little more deeply. For now, from beautiful frozen Wyoming. I'm wishing you all the best.